Hello, and greetings, lovely person. This is RPGmodsFan, and in this walkthrough video, I will be reviewing and discussing the infamous Dungeons & Dragons module S1 Tomb of Horrors, which was written by the legendary Gary Gygax. It was published by TSR in 1978, and it was reprinted in 1981. This module was meant for player characters between the levels of 10 to 14. This module was written for AD&D First Edition rules. Both the original and the reprint versions included an accompanying illustration booklet, which brought to life many of the rooms and devious traps that are in the tomb. Because they include the original illustration booklet, for Dungeon Masters thinking of running this adventure, I personally would recommend getting the PDF version of either of these modules. The Tomb of Horrors was originally written for and used at the 1975 Origins 1 Game Fair convention, which was held in Baltimore, Maryland. This version also included illustrations. However, the illustrations were much less artistic and cruder. At the end of this video, during one of the ending songs, I will have the Origins and TSR's versions of each illustration side by side for comparison purposes. Personally, I love these crude illustrations. It reminds me when I first started designing dungeons for my players. Oh, nostalgia. Over the decades, this module has been reprinted several times over several editions of D&D. In 1987, TSR included it as part of the Realms of Horror compilation of the S-Series modules. In 2005, Wizards of the Coast released the module for their 3.5 edition of Dungeons & Dragons. In 2013, Wizards of the Coast reprinted the original 1E version of the module in their Dungeons of Dread compilation. The module has been revised a few times as well. In 1998, TSR published Return to the Tomb of Horrors. In this version, it treats the first adventure as merely an antechamber and not the Lich's true resting place. In 2010, Wizards of the Coast released the D&D 4th edition of the module. However, I would say that this version was loosely based on the original 1E version. The most recent update came in the Tales from the Yawning Portal adventure book, which was published in 2017. This version updates the original module to D&D 5th edition rules. However, this version does not include an illustration booklet, which is why I suggest getting TSR's original version of the module. Tomb of Horrors was TSR's first killer dungeon. It was intended not to challenge the intruding adventurers, but to kill them dead. So, if the Dungeon Master were to run the module as written, it is deadly and dangerous, and yes, it can be frustrating and unfair. Gary Gygax stated that he wrote it to challenge his uber-powerful players. I think these uber players must have pissed him off. So, he wrote this module to wreak havoc on them. It is a Players versus Dungeon Master module. Thus, as a Dungeon Master, I would run this adventure as a one-shot. Otherwise, if players are putting their beloved characters through this adventure, then be merciful and reward creative and ingenious ideas/solutions that they come up with, and do not be restricted to what is written in the module. To the player characters, the Tomb of Horrors is supposed to be well hidden and only legend. From the horrific tales they have heard, it should be a place they do not want to find. The tales should be conflicting, such as tales of ancient evil empires, tales of lost civilizations, tales of sorcerer kings, tales of soul eaters, and/or tales of ancient burial grounds. As a dungeon master, I would have the player characters stumble upon the tomb during the course of one of their adventures. In other words, it should be a side quest and not a place they outright seek. The Tomb of Horrors was originally set in the fantasy world of Greyhawk. Gary Gygax suggested 6 possible far-flung locations for the adventure. They are as follows: inside the highest hill on the plains of Ios, on an unmapped island in the Nair Dive, in the Bright Desert, at the western border of the Duchy of Jeff, somewhere in the vast swamp south of Sundi, or on an island beyond the realm of the Sea Barons. Tales from the Yawning Portal has suggested locations in other D&D campaign settings. For the Forgotten Realms setting, Tales suggested 5 possible locations. They are the Serpent Hills, the Trialta Hills, the High Moor, amid the isles that make up the Corin Archipelago in the Moonshays, or it might be somewhere in the Acererak Desert, perhaps tying it to the ancient Empire of Netheril, also known as the Empire of Magic. For the Dragonlance campaign setting on the world of Crine, Tales suggests 3 possible locations. They are in the foothills near the East Wall Mountains, also known as the Forsaken Mountains, in the Cursed Lands of Newsea, or in the Shadowglades of Crine. For the Eberron campaign setting, Tales suggests 4 possible locations. They are the Ashen Spires of Karnath, among the Tors in the Vile Marsh between Doram and the Shadow Marches, among Shargon's Teeth. Shargon's Teeth are a group of islands that separates the Kover and Zandrik continents, or the Boneyard. The adventure starts with the player characters heading to a mound. Before the party is a low, flat-topped hill about 180 meters wide, 270 meters long, and 18 meters high. Only ugly weeds, thorns, and briars grow upon the steep sides of the bald-top mound. There are black rocks upon the top of the hill. When viewed from above, the whole mound is shaped and looks like a human skull. So, player characters, what is your next move? I will now be discussing the module itself, and this video will contain major spoilers. Unless you are a dungeon master who will be running this module for their players, or are a player who already played through this module and are watching this video for nostalgia purposes, I would suggest not to watch the rest of this video. I must emphasize, Tomb of Horrors is the type of module that is not replayable, and the type of module you can only play once. So, again, I would suggest to players not to watch the rest of this video. Somewhere under a lost and lonely hill of grime and foreboding aspect lies a crypt. It is filled with terrible traps and a few strange and ferocious monsters to slay the unwary. It is filled with rich treasures, both precious and magical. But in addition to the aforementioned guardians, there is said to be a lich who still wards his final haunt. Be warned that tales have it that this being, called Acererak, possesses powers that make him nearly undefeatable. All accounts conclude that it is quite unlikely any explorers will ever find the chamber where the Lich lingers, for the passages and rooms of the tomb are fraught with traps, poison gases, and magical protections. Originally, I wanted to place this Legend of the Tomb reading in the players section of the video. Then I thought it is best left up to the Dungeon Master to decide how much the players know. Perhaps the tomb has been long forgotten. Perhaps this information is only uncoverable via research. To paraphrase Gary, this dungeon has more tricks and traps than it has monsters to fight. This is a thinking person's module and not a hack and slash module. However, none of us, thank goodness, thinks the same. The solutions that Gary writes for his tricks and traps may not be the solutions your players come up with. As I stated in the players section, have the player characters stumble upon the tomb during the course of one of their adventures. Have them meet a group of naked people who claim to have been teleported as such out of the tomb. Countless ages ago, a wizard/cleric of surpassing evil took the steps necessary to preserve his life force beyond the centuries he had already lived, and this creature became the Lich known as Acererak. The Lich dwelled with hordes of ghastly servants in the gloomy stone halls of the very hill where his tomb is. Eventually, even time takes its toll on the undead. Acererak's servants labored for 8 decades to build the Tomb of Horrors. Then Acererak destroyed all his slaves and servants, magically hid the entrance to his halls, and went to reside in his final haunt. Again, countless ages have passed, and the Lich's skeletal bones have turned to dust. All that remains of Acererak is his bejeweled skull. Acererak has become a Demi-Lich. Now and then I will insert clips from the Birchback Heroes Explore the Tomb of Horrors animation. This animation was done by Jennifer Shiman for her Angry Alien Productions. Link to it will be in the description section below. It is very humorous. Too bad she was not able to animate every room in the tomb. Oh well. Anyway, let's meet the members of the Birchback Heroes.
My name is Roland. When I heard of the great magical objects hidden within the deadly tomb of Acererak, I knew it was my destiny to find them. That's why I gathered some fellow adventurers to join me on my quest to find the treasure and claim powers beyond one's wildest imagination.
Hi, I'm Callie, and I enjoy long walks on rooftops, dumpster diving, cheap locks, unattended valuables, and other shiny things. Anyway, I'm between jobs right now, so I thought signing on with the Birchback Heroes seemed like a good idea.
I am Layla the Swift. Oh, and this is Squatty, my quasi-dragon familiar. I accepted the invitation to join the Birchbark Heroes on this journey into the deadliest dungeon of all time. Gee, Squatty, what did you eat? Anyway, I hope we make it out alive, but I doubt it.
I am Sigford Morningstar, Paladin, of course. This party needs a protector with a pure heart to lead them through the darkest evil that is the Tomb of Horrors. A valiant hero who is not afraid to say, "I told you so, don't touch that," and "that was a stupid idea."
My name is Orsic, friend of bees. I'm a fighter for hire, but I'm not just in it for the honey. I'm brave and strong, and I really enjoy violence.
There are 2 false and 1 real entrance to the tomb. Which ones the party finds depends on where on the mound they searched. Entrance number 1 is a false entrance. The dark corridor before the party is made of plain stone, roughly worked, and is full of cobwebs. The ceiling overhead is obscured by hanging strands of webbing, which is composed of badly fitting stones. A pair of false oaken double doors is at the end of the passageway. If the doors are opened, the roof of the tunnel will collapse and inflict 5d10 hit points of damage upon each character inside of it. Tales from the Yawning Portal allows for a saving throw for half damage. So, let's see how our band of adventurers, the Birchback heroes, handled the first false entrance.
Stand back! Stand back!
This appears to be the entrance. Everyone stay alert. This tomb is filled with the deadliest traps, and no one ever makes it out alive. Duly noted. Open the doors!
Stand back!
Entrance number 2 is also a false entrance. The corridor before the party is made of plain stone, roughly worked, and motard. 2 false doors will be at the end of the corridor. Tales from the Yawning Portal has the players roll for initiative when someone reaches within 10 feet or 3 meters away from the 2 doors. At that point, the player characters will hear a low, rumbling sound. I would have them roll for initiative before entering the corridor to make it less obvious of the impending sliding stone block trap. Within 3 rounds after someone reached 3 meters away from the doors, the sliding stone block will completely seal off the corridor, trapping those who remain inside. Okay, they did not do so well in the first entrance. Let's see how the Birchback heroes will handle the second false entrance.
There's absolutely nothing we can do, we're all gonna die. There's absolutely nothing we can do, we're all gonna die.
Okay, this looks more like the way in. Clearly that other one was a false entrance.
Clearly.
This time we need to inspect this whole area. Almighty Toadflax, I speak in tongues to you. I got nothing.
Hey, come on now, hold it steady.
Ow.
Squatty, find the trap, Squatty. Oh, the coast is clear. Sorry, we're totally gonna come back for you, I promise.
Entrance number 3 is the real entrance to the tomb. Displayed is the illustration of the corridor that was in the original version of the module. The walls and ceiling are brightly colored. The floor is colorful mosaic of stone with a distinct winding path of red tiles snaking its way south. Various frescoes and scenes are painted on the walls and ceiling. Within the corridor are 5 concealed 10-foot or 3-meter deep poison-spiked pit traps. One important note. In the first and second edition of AD&D, most saving throws versus poison were save or die saving throws. In 5th edition D&D, poison saving throws dealt a certain amount of damage, but were not save or die saving throws. If a player character carefully observes the floor, he or she will notice there is a barely noticeable message written on the floor. It says,
Acererak congratulates you on your powers of observation. So make of this whatever you wish, for you will be mine in the end, no matter what. Go back to the Tormentor, or through the Arch, and the second great hall you'll discover. Shun green if you can, but night's good color is for those of great valor. If shades of red stand for blood, the wise will not sacrifice aught but a loop of magical metal. You're well along your march. 2 pits along the way will be found to lead to a fortuitous fall, so check the wall. These keys and those are most important of all. But beware of trembling hands and what will maul. If you find the false, you find the true, and into the columned hall you'll come, and there the throne that's keyed and keyed. The iron men of visage grim do more than meets the viewer's eye. You've left and found my tomb, and now your souls will die.
An outstanding fresco is painted on the west wall near the entrance. Excluding true seeing, the trap door before the fresco is undetectable. 2 jackal-headed human figures are painted so as to appear to be holding a real bronze chest that protrudes from the wall. If this box is examined closely, the viewer will notice that it is hinged on the bottom so as to allow the lid to swing open down, whose catch has a poison needle trap. The box appears empty, but actually has an invisible lever inside. Pulling on the lever will open the trap door where there is a 30-foot or 9-meter deep poison-spiked pit trap. A torture chamber is painted on the west wall before one of the poison-spiked pit traps. Actually, the wall hides a door that opens inward into the passage beyond. At the end of the hall, and on the east wall, is a stone archway filled with a veil of thick vapors. The stones on either side of the base and the keystone protrude slightly and glow different colors. Those who enter the archway while it is still clouded will be teleported to the Forsaken Prison in room number 7. If the glowing colored stones are pressed in the proper sequence, the mist will clear, revealing a dead-end hall beyond. Those who then enter the archway and stay on the red-tiled path will be teleported to room number 11. For those who pass through without staying on the path will be teleported back to the entrance. At the end of the entrance hallway is perhaps D&D's most iconic image. On the wall is a relief sculpture of an open-mouthed devil face. The mouth opening has a fixed sphere of annihilation. I wonder what the Birchback heroes did when they reached the green devil face.
Bonsai! Bonsai! We've painstakingly inspected every inch of this room. This is probably a shortcut. But I detect magic here, and evil. Fine, let the final testing commence.
Huh?
For the greater good!
Bonsai! After you. Magic treasure come to Papa.
For those who end up in the Forsaken Prison, it is a miserable cubicle that appears to have no means of egress. 3 iron levers protrude from the south wall. Simultaneously pushing all the levers straight up opens a small trapdoor on the ceiling. This ceiling route is a crawlspace, which is depicted as a dashed white lines on the displayed map. Simultaneously pushing all the levers straight down opens the entire floor to a 100-foot or 30-meter deep pit. The 4-armed gargoyle is in its statue form until someone first enters into chamber number 8. The mutant gargoyle wears a necklace that has 10 gems. Room number 11 contains a statue of a large gargoyle that once had 4 arms, but one of the arms is broken off and lies on the floor in front of the statue. When 1 gem is placed in each of the 3 hands of the statue will crush them to powder. When a total of 10 or more gems have been placed, an invisible gem of true seeing will appear in the 4th arm's hand. Chamber number 10 is called the Great Hall of Spheres. The floors, walls, and ceiling are inlaid with mosaics of animals, monsters, humans, and glyphs, many of them holding spheres of different colors. 2 false doors labeled with the number 12 are trapped. Some sections of the walls are illusions hiding crawlways. At the southern end of the hall is another mist-filled archway. The archway will always remain clouded no matter what sequence of the stones are pressed. Any character stepping through the archway will be teleported back to the entrance totally nude, while everything else they carry will be teleported to the Demi-Lich's crypt. Oh boy, I'm afraid to see what the Birchback heroes did when they were at this southern archway.
Okay, Callie, send them in. See, it's perfectly safe. Callie, you go first. Cowabunga! Ah, my clothes, my gear, my stuff. This was totally part of my plan, I swear. 3, 2, 1.
Crazy, we got way too much already to kill.
No. Well, how should I know that computer plays a teleporter? I'm well new for that matter.
Within chamber number 13 are 3 large chests. The chest on the left is gold-colored, the one in the center is silver, and the one on the right is oak. Within the gold-colored chests are 12 large asps. The silver-colored chest holds a +1 ring of protection in a clear crystal box. When this box is lifted, 8 darts will fire upwards. When the lid of the oak chest is opened, an animated skeleton of a giant will be instantly teleported into the chest and attacks. Chamber number 14 is a chapel-like room with scenes of life painted on the walls, but the people depicted have rotting flesh, skeletal hands, and worms eating them. The front pair of wooden pews have gas traps. The rest of the pews have quite a bit of coin treasure. Anyone touching the blue altar at the front of the chapel will trigger a lightning bolt trap. Touching it a second time will trigger a fireball trap. A person entering the mist-filled stone archway can pass through into a square room on the other side. However, both the person's gender and alignment will change to the opposite. The only way to proceed further into the tomb is to place any magical ring into a slot on the wall at area number 15. This will trigger the huge stone block to sink and reveal a passage. At the end of a long corridor is a locked oaken door. The door can withstand 100 hit points of damage or can be destroyed via disintegrate spell, but knock spells or pick locks will not work. The floor of the hallway beyond is very smooth and polished. The first character to reach the midway point of the hallway will trigger the trap and cause the floor to tilt downward to a pool of molten lava. In order to proceed further into the tomb, the player characters need to find a concealed door at the bottom of a poison-spiked pit trap. Corridor number 18 is filled with fear gas. Beyond the door, a stairway leads down, and the stairway is blocked by thick webbing, which can easily entangle a character. The webs can only be burned away by magical fire. At the foot of the stairway is a silver inlaid mace which will begin to glow with a bright golden light when it is picked up by any character. Chamber number 18A is the pseudo-crypt and is filled with rotting and decayed furnishings. Along the back wall, upon a solid gold couch, is a lich-like figure with a crown on its head. It will slowly rise and throws up its hands in apparent fear if the mace is being carried. A booming voice emanating from the whole chamber will demand,
"Who dares to disturb the rest of Acererak? It is your death which you have found."
This false lich is actually a magically prepared greater zombie. The third time the false lich is struck by the mace, it will wither and disappear in a puff of dust. The mace will shatter, and at this moment the room will start to rumble, shake, and stones will begin to come down from the ceiling. Basically, the place is about to collapse. This collapse is actually an illusion. The module then states, if the party runs for their lives, ask them if they thought the tomb was too hard of a dungeon. If your player characters are suspicious enough to press on, the next room in this railroad adventure is the laboratory and mummy preparation room. There are 3 huge vats in this room. 2 of them holds half of a golden key each, which can be joined together to form one key. Hereafter, this key will be referred to as the first key. However, one of these vats contains an okra jelly. As the player characters press on in the tomb, they will come across an open pit filled with spikes. The danger here is any footstep upon the last meter of the eastern portion of the pit will cause a volley of spikes to be discharged upwards. Each person in the pit will be struck by 2 to 5 spikes, each hit causing 1 to 6 hit points of damage. New spikes will come up from where the old ones discharged from. Room number 21 looks like it could have been a room in a funeral parlor, but has been trashed. Plain-looking tapestries hang upon the east and west walls. There are 6 locked empty trunks here, and 24 small coffers. 12 of the coffers will hold a few poisonous afts each. The other 12 hold platinum pieces or gems. For each round anyone is in the room, there is a 50% chance the floor will agitate violently. The tapestries are actually green slime and brown mold. If torn, the tapestry turns into green slime. If burned, the tapestry turns into brown mold. The tapestry on the west wall hides a secret exit. The false door on the east wall is another spear trap door. The two doors within the displayed red box are actually phase doors. From the north side, they look and function like normal doors. From the south side, there are no doors, just the wall. Basically, Gary is railroading the adventure. The poison-spiked pit trap at Area 31 phases into existence whenever one of the 3 doors in the displayed red box is opened. Within the mist-filled cavern number 22 is an enchanted siren who is also Acererak's prisoner here. To play on the character's greed, there is also a large and a small sack here. Touching either sack will cause the other sack and the siren to disappear. At area number 23 is a door that opens to a blank stone wall. So, the player characters will, at first, think of this as another false door. However, the blank stone wall hides a secret door. On the floor just beyond the door is a concealed trap door that leads further into the tomb. Whenever the northern doors of corridor number 23A is opened, sleeping gas will fill the corridor. At least in the Tales from the Yawning Portal version, allows for a Constitution saving throw at DC 15. A stone juggernaut will come out of its room to the north and steamroll its way into the sleep gas-filled corridor. When it does so depends on dice rolls by the Dungeon Master. I try not to be critical of Gary Gygax's work, but I am not too fond of this module and its player versus DM mentality. The dungeon design of this area also does not make sense. How can the Juggernaut make hairpin 90-degree turns in this section? Alright, let's see how the Birchback heroes handled the hairpin turning stone Juggernaut. Normally, I would say I would not be holding my breath, but in this case, it would actually be wise to hold my breath. Chamber number 25 is called the Pillared Throne Room. Any characters who touch a pillar will uncontrollably float upwards until they bounce gently around on the ceiling, just as a child's helium balloon would. There is a gentle breeze, and any character floating will begin drifting northeastwards or northwestwards. On the walls of the northeast and northwest corners of the chamber are more green-faced devils. Any creature getting sucked into the mouth of the northwest devil face will be teleported and spat out nude from the green devil face that is at the entrance of the tomb. All their non-living matter will be teleported to location number 33, which is the Demi-Lich's crypt. any creature getting sucked into the mouth of the northeast devil face will be teleported to chamber number 27A. Within the chamber is a small fountain, numerous skeletons, rotting equipment, crushed gems, and broken items. Chamber number 27 is a small room filled with swords and shields on all walls. The swords and shields will animate and attack any who enter the room from either of its doors. At the southeast corner of the chamber are charred remains, all encircling a huge, glowing orange gem. The gem is a cursed magic item. If anyone using it to cast a wish spell, the gem fulfills a reversed and/or distorted version of the wish. The gem then begins to pulse with reddish lights, growing progressively stronger, brighter, and hotter. The gem then explodes, absolutely killing anyone within a 15-foot or 4.5-meter radius. The gem will then reform within a week's time. Contrasting the pastel colors of the floor and pillars of the chamber is the stark blackness of the huge dais on the south wall, atop which sits an obsidian throne inlaid with silver and ivory skulls. Upon the throne rests a crown made of gold and a scepter made of electrum, with a gold knob on one end and a silver cap on the other. The wearer of the crown becomes blind when exiting this chamber. Touching the gold end of the scepter to the crown will allow the wearer to remove the crown. Touching the silver end of the scepter to the crown will snuff out the wearer, turning the person into powder. Inlaid in silver upon the lower front panel of the throne is a replica of the crown. Touching the silver end of the scepter to it will cause the throne to sink and reveals a passageway beyond. The walls of chamber number 28 are untarnished, gleaming copper panels. The ceiling is silver. Upon the black marble step is a large cylindrical bronze key, hereafter called the second key. The only way to open the mithril doors is to insert the gold end of the scepter found in the pillared throne room into the hemispherical depression on the doors. Using the first or second key will cause lightning damage to the character. Any scratching on the doors, such as the player characters attacking the doors with sharp weapons, will cause the doors to bleed with the blood of all those who died in the tomb. Unless stopped somehow, the chamber will fill within 20 rounds, drowning those within. That is enough blood for more than 60,000 humans. The displayed table shows what effects certain spells have on the blood. This is according to the module. If the silver end of the scepter is inserted, that person will be teleported to and spat out of the devil's mouth naked at area number 6, while all other possessions will go to chamber number 33, with the exception of the crown and scepter, which will reappear on the throne. Man, Gary Gygax must have had a subconscious desire to see his players naked. Anyway, let's move on to the next room. In each corner of chamber number 30 stands a very tall statue of black iron, and each holds a different weapon. On the southern wall is a granite sarcophagus. Flanking the sarcophagus are 2 large iron chests. Near the center of the room is a large bronze urn. The bronze urn contains an Ifariti. If the urn has not been roughly handled, the Ifariti will grant 3 wishes, and then it will depart. Examining the lid of the sarcophagus reveals glyphs that spell Acererak. Inside of it is the shattered remains of a skeleton and a broken staff of magi. This scene was meant to fake out the players into thinking Acererak has already been destroyed by someone else. The iron chests contain an enormous amount of wealth in terms of platinum coin and gems. However, when the treasure reaches 13 miles or 22 kilometers away from the tomb, the platinum pieces will revert to copper pieces, and the gems will revert to quartz worth only a gold piece each. Moving the statue in the northwest corner, the one with the spiked mace, reveals a pull ring on the western wall, which will enable the party to proceed into the corridor beyond. The secret door at area number 32 can only be opened by the use of the first key. The rectangular room beyond is completely empty. The second key will fit into a hole that is at the center of the room. Turning it 3 times clockwise will cause the floor to slowly rise. A mithril vault will rise in the southern part of the room. The vault's door has a ring and can be opened with a hard pull. The party has finally reached Acererak's crypt. Inside are all the items from the characters that were teleported nude, a cursed spear of backbiting, as well as a lot of treasure. However, given that at least 60,000 people have died in the tomb, I find the treasure to be here peanuts in comparison. Perhaps all that treasure was used to pay demons to maintain the tomb for Acererak. All that remains of Acererak are the dust of his bones and his skull. If the treasure in the crypt is touched, the bone dust swirls into the air and forms a man-like shape. If the shape is ignored, it will dissipate in 3 rounds. However, if it is attacked, whether physically and or magically, it will gain energy. If it gains enough energy, the dust will transform into a ghost that can do real attacks and damage. The skull of Acererak has 2 huge gems set into its eye sockets and 6 marquise-cut gems set as its teeth. If any character touches or attacks the skull, it will rise, scan the party, and trap the soul of the most powerful party member into one of its gems. Then sinks back down to rest. The character's body collapses into a mass of corruption. If the skull is touched or attacked again, it will again rise and trap the soul of the next most powerful character, etc. Once all 8 gems have trapped souls, on its next turn the Demi-Lich will teleport all remaining characters about 300 miles or 500 kilometers away and bestow a terrible curse on them. The Tales from the Yawning Portal version bestows a much milder curse in comparison to the original version. I don't believe it. Somehow, the Birchback characters reached Acererak's crypt. Let's see how they fared against the Demi-Lich.
At long last! At long last! The crypt of Acererak! At long last!
There are gems in this skull. Allow me.
Callie, do not touch that skull!
Feel my mighty spear!
Wow, look at the time. I gotta go. Ah, you don't want me. My soul tastes horrible.
Gems with souls in them are way more valuable.
Ha!
See, Squatty? Just a little common sense.
Hey, wait, I didn't mean it. How about a 50-50 split? Squatty, is that you? Go home right away and get my spell book. Then bookmark the chapter on removing curses and bring it back here, okay? Good boy, hurry!
I, Sigfrid Morningstar, vow to set an example for all poor souls who end up in this skull for eternity. I have been trained to endure extreme suffering, and I remember the time when I was a young lad, when I was attacked by a rabid bugbear.
This is still part of my plan. Now I want to talk about it.
Kid, I got a major stash of gold pieces at my place, and they're yours if you get me out of here.
Squatty, is that you? Could you try to get me a pizza with salmon and pineapple? Oh, and extra chili flakes too. And if you could find a way to free me, that would be really swell. Thanks, old guy.
And so ends the expedition to the Tomb of Horrors. Hopefully this video was able to showcase why this module has such an infamous reputation. I know this video is already quite long, but I feel it would be incomplete without telling my own war story of this module. Decades ago, when I ran this module, and that would be the 1E version of D&D, my players were able to go through the whole dungeon to its end and defeat Acererak. But they hated this module. However, there are a few caveats to this story. First off, my players had very high charisma scores. Since we were playing AD&D First Edition at such high scores, they hired a lot of henchmen each. Basically, they were going through my campaign with a small army. When they were exploring the tomb, they were constantly poking around with 10-foot poles to avoid traps, which, of course, is the smart thing to do. This helped them to avoid the sphere of annihilation in the Green Devil's mouth. However, as they progressed, their number of henchmen began to dwindle. Usually I would roll for morality checks, but I, on purpose, did not roll for such checks throughout the dungeon. At the very end, I, again on purpose, made the Demi-Lich skull trap souls starting from the weakest henchmen instead. When they left the tomb and went back to their strongholds, they then wanted to hire replacement henchmen. Because of the tomb's reputation and how few henchmen survived, I told them that any new hires would only be willing to work as guards for their strongholds and not go on any expeditions or adventures with them. The only ones that would go with them are the ones necessary to balance out the party, and no more. At first, my players objected and were rules lawyering. However, I then honestly told them it was getting hard for me to design dungeons for them when they were bringing a small army with them. With the Tomb of Horrors, at least there is now an in-game reason instead of a metagame reason for why they cannot have too many henchmen accompanying them. My players then understood what I did, accepted it, and were fine with it. Over the decades, Acererak became one of D&D's most famous, or should I say infamous, villains. As a lich, he makes a proper appearance in the Tomb of Annihilation 5e adventure book. Unless you also include the four-armed gargoyle, the only new monster to make its debut to D&D in this module was the Demi-Lich. Just to summarize what I have already stated earlier, this module is not a labyrinth. Instead, it is a railroad. This is a player versus DM module, so it is better to run it as a one-shot. Do not run this module as is. Many things in it are just unfair. No two people think alike, thank goodness for that, and it is unlikely your players will come up with the same solutions as Gary offers in the module. Be flexible and approving of genius ideas. I would consider the 5e version more fair because it allows for saving throws. For instance, in the 1e version, there was no saving throw allowed against the sleep gas in the Stone Juggernaut trap. The battle against the Demi-Lich is ridiculous and unfair. On purpose, it seems both the original and the tales do not specify whether a saving throw is allowed versus its trap soul's ability. It is heavily implied as if no saving throw is allowed. I would allow a saving throw since the Demi-Lich is impervious to many forms of attacks. Because this module is so infamous, it seems as if it is a rite of passage for D&D players. Thank you for watching. Hope this long video has been informative and entertaining. Till next time, this is RPGmodsFan saying cheers, have a good day, and goodbye.
The summer's calling. The summer's calling. If the kingdom is overthrown, meet me at the cornerstone. I know that I can't be without you. This bond is solid gold. We're a diamond and an emerald. It took me forever to find you. 'Cause when it's all over, the love that you give will be there to guide you in every way. Now we've been through the cold and darkest days. The summer's calling. As we wait for the smoke to clear and we watch our dreams appear, I know that we can rise together. This vision that we share is ours. Together we can touch the stars. I know that we will see December. 'Cause when it's all over, the love that you give will be there to guide you in every way. Now we've been through the cold and darkest days. The summer's calling. you over, you just can't breathe. Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? That Coming.